Mark, it's great to see you, and I wonder what you make of that sort of qualitative judgment, given that, again, we don't know the base number of that ad revenue figure.
Yeah, I mean, at the scale they're at right now, I think that's a reasonable expectation. But I think what's kind of even more interesting is the last reported numbers last year from Netflix is 1 out of every 2 new subscribers are buying the ad-supported tier. And so even if the revenue gets to that scale, there's still so much money left on the table for them that they can grow into. And I think it's going to be a big part of Netflix's future growth. So it's that backlog of ad revenue that they're not yet monetizing, even though the consumers are saying we want to receive ads. I think it's a big part of their future story.
And Mark, of course, a big topic of conversation always, but especially in this earnings report, is engagement. You know, whether or not Netflix is attracting those eyeballs and winning those eyeballs. And the conversation we were just having with Simon Gallagher was, you know, how do you compete against a YouTube in the years, in the decade to come? And I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think people should think of YouTube and Netflix is very different. The way I think about it is YouTube owns the day and Netflix owns the night. And so I'm using YouTube. I think most people using YouTube, you know, watching podcasts, short form, user generated content. But the big tentpole, like the latest release from Netflix, The Rip, that's not on YouTube. That is nighttime content that people want to sit down. It's theatrical scale movies, live sports, all these things. And that's what Netflix owns. And most interesting, I think it is far easier for Netflix to go down into the day, meaning podcasts and other content, than it is for YouTube to come up and produce theatrical quality content.
Well, expand on that a little bit, because they do talk today a little bit, and we should point out that conference call kicking off now about the push into video podcasts, obviously the push into gaming, but at the same time, and these are their words, they talk about, quote, how the competitive lines are increasingly blurring, and they actually cite YouTube's deal with the Oscars, which kicks in, I think, in 2029.
Yeah, I mean, obviously YouTube is, I mean, Google has the scale they have as a company. They want to continue to grow their user base, but I think it's a much tougher play for them. And I think also it doesn't feel natural to the entertainment consumer, right? In other words, you buy a Netflix subscription because for most people, this is proven data, it's the first place you go when you turn on the TV. I don't think, you know, for YouTube to take over that spot in the consumer's mind when they're sitting on the couch, laying in bed, wherever they're watching that kind of content, I think you can do it with a show or two, but I think it's going to be very hard to do it at scale.
So I do have to ask you about the potential. When we talk about the build out of the ad business, and we should point out they're commenting on that now on the call, saying that they can grow that business pretty aggressively this year. Does acquiring something like Warner Brothers actually aid in that in terms of the content that they bring to the table, or is that maybe just something completely different?
No, I think it definitely aids in that in terms of the content they have. Big shows like White Lotus, the HBO catalog, you know, just quite a bit of like top quality content. Even I'm not 100% sure where they're getting rights to Discovery's content, but all of the content from Discovery. So I think it's very important. It does give more to sell. Also, Warner Brothers has a very, very established ads business, and I think it's a little underestimated as to what that can bring in terms of having thousands of experienced sellers with relationships and who know how to operate in this business. Netflix is growing that. It's not, they're probably trying to recruit those people right now, but I think bringing one big ad sales team out of Warner Brothers is like a hidden gem if they win this acquisition war.